On the Scottish set, the final filming of Outlander Season 8 ended with the director's cut. The entire crew erupted in applause and tears. But in a quiet corner, Sam and Caitriona stood there, saying nothing, just looking at each other. The afternoon light poured through the wooden windows, illuminating their faces, a mixture of exhaustion, emotion, and something deeper. "So, it's really over?" Caitriona said softly, her voice choked. Sam looked at her, then smiled slightly. "I don't think it's over. We just changed the way we tell the story." She smiled, her eyes sparkling with sadness. "People say, when one chapter closes, a new one begins. But Sam, do you want to write a new chapter with me?" Sam was silent for a long time. He approached, placing his hand on her shoulder. "You know, I've been thinking about it for months. Outlander isn't just Claire and Jamie, it's us, Sam and Kate. I can't imagine doing anything else without you there." They sat down, on the wooden steps in front of the fake house in the movie, where they'd filmed their breakup scene in the rain in Season 2. The scene was real, but the emotions were more real this time than any before. "So what if?" Caitriona said, her eyes suddenly lighting up. "What if we talked to the director, to the studio? A different script, not Outlander, but still with us, a new world, two different people, but still with that soul." Sam laughed. "A movie where fate brings you two together again, yeah." She smiled. "But this time, they're not Jamie and Claire. They're themselves, but they still carry the memory of everything they've had." They both imagined an independent film, two strangers meeting again in Paris, both carrying old pains. The looks, the silences, the chemistry that couldn't be hidden. "Do you think people will believe it?" Sam asked, half joking. Caitriona touched his hand. "If they believed in Jamie and Claire's love, they'll believe in us." A cold wind blew. Sam took her hand, not letting go this time. "Then, tomorrow, let's talk to the director. Tell him, this story shouldn't end." Caitriona looked at him. Her eyes filled with an emotion that needed no words to explain. "Outlander may be closed, Sam, but I believe another door will open. For us." They stood up and walked off the set. The sunset light fell, lengthening the two figures' intertwined silhouettes, as if time itself was slowing down to witness that moment, when an end becomes the beginning of something new. The next morning, Edinburgh greeted the new day with a thin veil of fog draped over the hills. Sam drove slowly through the familiar streets, Caitriona sitting silently in the passenger seat, holding a cup of hot coffee. No one spoke, but the silence wasn't empty. It was filled with unsaid words, with looks from last night that hadn't yet dissipated. "Do you think we're crazy?" She laughed softly, looking out the foggy window. Sam tilted his head. "If we are crazy, I want to be crazy with you again." Caitriona laughed, a small laugh, but it made the atmosphere less heavy. They were on their way to meet Mark Stevenson, the director of Outlander, who had witnessed every look, every breath between them for 8 long seasons. Mark opened the door to the office, his eyes surprised to see them together. "You're so early." "I haven't had time to make coffee yet." Caitriona looked at Sam, then walked up. "Mark, Sam and I have something to talk about. Not about Outlander, but about what comes after." Mark raised an eyebrow, putting down the script. "I guess we're both not ready to say goodbye." Sam looked at him, his voice low but firm. "Not that we're not ready. It's that, we feel like the story is still alive. It just needs another world to continue." Mark was silent for a few seconds, then chuckled. "You're talking about a new project?" Caitriona nodded. "A movie, maybe a miniseries. It doesn't have to be Outlander, but it still has that connection. Two souls who met, lost each other, and now found each other, in another life." Mark looked at them, his eyes piercing what they were both avoiding. "Do you know what we're talking about? This isn't just a career. This is something bigger." Sam smiled. "We know." But Mark, sometimes characters only survive when two people have something between them. Jamie and Claire did, and we believe that it still does. The air in the room was heavy. Mark stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the slowly lightening sky. I've thought about it, to be honest. A small, private project for the two of you. But the studio would be reluctant to agree. However, he turned around, his eyes blazing. If you two co-produce, co-develop the idea, maybe we can do it. Caitriona raised her head, surprised. Are you serious, really? Mark laughed. There's no shortage of people in the world who would love to see you two together again. But I want a promise that this story won't just be an extension of Outlander, but something entirely new. A story about two people finding themselves, and maybe, finding each other. Caitriona turned to look at Sam. Their eyes met, without words. I promise, Sam said. But you'll write it with me, right? With you, she said, smiling slightly. That afternoon, they sat in a small cafe by the river Forth. On the table was an open white notebook, the first page of a new story. What do you think the title will be? Sam asked. Caitriona touched pen to paper and wrote slowly, The One We Never Said Goodbye To. He read, nodding slightly. It sounds like we've never been apart, because we never were, she replied, her eyes shining with something very real. Sam paused, then gently brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. The gesture was so natural that no one realized it was no longer an act. They sat until dusk. The story was still unwritten, but more importantly, they had decided to write it together. Caitriona said softly, You know, the outside world might just see this as another movie. But for me, it's a chance to hold on to what we once had. Sam replied softly, and this time, I won't let it be just fiction. She smiled, shy and warm. Outside, the streetlights began to light up, reflecting their eyes like two stars slowly finding each other after the storm. The next day, Mark sent a brief text. Dear you two, I've contacted a producer in London. They're very interested in the idea. See you this weekend. Caitriona looked at the message, then turned to Sam. See? Maybe fate doesn't want to close this story yet. Sam smiled, his voice deep. No, maybe it's just changing the setting. Outside the window, it started to rain lightly again, the typical Scottish rain, exactly like the rain that had fallen on the day they first met on set years ago. And in that moment, they both understood, even if the world changed, even if Outlander closed, another door was indeed opening. Not just for the story they were about to write, but for themselves. London, a quiet autumn morning. In the small audition room, Sam and Caitriona sat side by side, the first draft of the script in front of them. On the page, the first line read, Two people who loved each other in another life, and now, they meet again. Caitriona smiled slightly, turning to Sam. Sounds familiar? He replied softly, almost in a whisper. Maybe because it's us. They began to read the lines, her voice trembling at the opening line, his deep and warm, as if each word touched both of their memories. It was no longer acting. It was no longer Jamie or Claire. It was just Sam and Kate, two people trying to figure out how not to lose each other amid the roles, the years, and the studio lights. When the dialogue ended, the room was silent. The producer only said quietly, If there is such a thing as fate on screen, then maybe, it's right in front of us. Caitriona looked at Sam, her eyes glistening with tears. Maybe Outlander is over, she whispered, but our story isn't. Sam took her hand, his smile as light as the wind. It's never goodbye, Kate. It's just, see you in the next movie. Out the window, sunlight filtered through the golden canopy, falling on the half-opened script, where a new story awaited them.